Ah, shoot, how did I even start these? I forget. I pressed record, by the way.
Oh, I see. Well,
It
this is
was,
a good
it was,
good way of ending to start.
it was something like, my name is Striker Utasa, welcome to Risk of Rain, that rainy day discussion, something like that. I remember correctly. It was something lame like that. I don't know.
Just cut it out of one of your prior videos and paste it right here.
I am Striker Utasa, and welcome to what was going to be a very long rainy day discussion. Just let Past Striker do the intro. All right, we'll just do that.
Yeah.
All right, so today we're talking about balance, and it's kind of a hot topic right now because of loader being really strong and like just the game feeling easy to a lot of players. And I actually have a visual aid right here. And Charlie, you asked me what these mean.
Hmm.
This is your Drizzle player. This is your Rainstorm player. This is your Monsoon player. And here are the two players that take the game really seriously. So like this would be like me, Europe, like those players, and then this would be like players that are exceptional at the game, like Crescendo.
Hmm.
That insane multiplayer that I did an interview with. So like this is me. I'll draw a little purple S. That's me. That's Striker. And this would be like Crescendo. Does that show up? It does not because my canvas. There we go. Put that up there. But yeah, so that, and if you look at this, this is kind of the like the majority of players that play this game are like Drizzle, Swarm, Sacrifice, Command players. Like this would be like your like children and stuff like that. These are your like normal players. These are your like more hardcore gamers, and here are the ones that take the game really seriously, like are active in the Risk Brand 2 Discord, people that have like joined the lab Discord, stuff like that. Then here's your character. Here's your players that have like 3K hours in the game and are like amazing at it.
Hmm.
So Charlie, I'm gonna ask you a question real quick.
Okay.
Who do you balance for?
I think that is always a hot topic, right?
Like, because over here is your the majority of your player base right here,
Hmm.
but then over here are your more dedicated players. So
I think this
like
is a hard question.
it's
I'm not sure because I remember having similar back in the day. I used to play competitive TF2. I don't anymore, but I used to. And this same question was a big thing that came up a lot, right? Do you balance around your normal like casual lobby players who aren't taking the game seriously and just want to have fun, or do you balance around extreme meta like competitive lobbies where people are all like really pushing everything to the limit,
yeah
you
this
know?
this same thing. I used to play a lot of competitive Overwatch, is kind of
Mhm.
the similar to what you just said, but Blizzard went with this decision where they're gonna balance for the Hour League players, which led to a
Mhm.
lot of really weird decisions that made a lot of casual players quit the game because they would take away mechanics or they would completely change how abilities work and just stuff like that that
Mhm.
were balanced for the Owl League players, but then down in like bronze or like casual level these champions were really powerful when people didn't understand how the game works.
I think there's a good distinction for like competitive versus like a PvE title as well.
Yeah.
So I think you can bias it much lower in like a PvE title.
Oh, definitely. Because those are games
Um,
where balancing really matters. Where this is a PVE game, if a character is really broken, you can just not play them if you don't want to.
right. Yeah.
But saying it's the same issue with like, oh, gesture is broken, well, just don't use it. Like that. That's not a good argument.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that there's kind of I don't know. I guess that's hard because you do have to pick a point to try and push things towards. I guess Rainstorm, right? That's the way the game is supposed to be played, or at least that's their description.
So
Maybe
that's
that's what we should bounce
that's what
towards.
I think too. But if you balance towards Rainstorm, and let me actually get black. By the way, I'm heavily basing this chart off of another chart. I'm gonna have this link in the description. But Jorbs made a video about the state of the game of Slay the Spire back before Ascension 20 was introduced, where the high level Slay Spire players were having like a 90% win rate, and the game wasn't really fun anymore. Definitely go watch that video because it's one of my favorite videos he's ever done. I'm kind of stealing this idea from him. This little slant system. That video is amazing. So if you
I
balance
guess.
towards these players, then let me remove these. How do I make this bigger right here? Paint is so weird. Why did I not use Photoshop for this? I pay for Photoshop, and I'm just like, I want to use Paint though because it's funny. Uh, if you balance for these players, will these players be happy? Charlie, what do you think?
Hmm, probably not. But I don't. Maybe that's okay. Because if you think about it, it's like numbers, right? If you think of this like a triangle, it's like half a rectangle, then it should be equal if you flip it, right? So like if you stacked the like absolute god gamer players on top of like Drizzle, then that would like fill out. You know what I mean? And so like the lab players and like the rainstorm players would kind of yeah.
So like here's
So as far as like player base, so like the rainstorm players are gonna account for like a third. I guess it'd be like 2/5. It'd be like two maybe.
yeah. So if
I
you're
don't
if you're
know,
balancing
but it
for
would
these
be like a
people,
large portion.
if you're balancing for these people, then pretty much like these two sections will be unhappy. But
Those will be the ones that are hit the most. Yeah.
the majority of players are happy. So that what I'm trying to explain here is that there's no winning scenario where everyone is happy because you're all
Yeah.
playing the same game. But this is where the difficulty section comes in, where like Drizzle, Rainstorm, Monsoon, they're all very different difficulties. Well, they're all very different, but like you have a difficulty system to fix this problem. Like it's a band-aid solution where now instead of us having to balance the game, you can just pick your difficulty.
Mhm.
But the issue with that is when you start with three. So if they added two more difficulties, one for these players and one for these players, then everyone should be happy in theory, right?
I guess you could kind of think of it that there's like if you're like Drizzle and then Drizzle with like command, or Drizzle with like sacrifice, or that's kind of like an easier way to play the game. And above Monsoon, there's kind of like mods or like Eclipse, right? And that's kind of what a lot of really high end players end up doing anyways. So maybe if you bounce around Rainstorm, that's still okay, right? Because you could always bring your difficulty up. If it's too hard, you could drop to Drizzle or turn on something like Command. Or if it's too easy, then you could start playing like Monsoon or Eclipse, right?
Yeah, that seemed
Maybe
to
maybe
be
that is okay.
Hopu's idea with the whole Eclipse modifiers, but I really don't like Eclipse
Yeah,
because it makes
I don't either.
it changes the game in arbitrary, not really arbitrary. I'm not sure if that's the word I'm looking for, but like it basically just
I
changes
think so.
numbers. It doesn't change actual mechanics, which is what I want.
Mm-hmm.
I hate when games are like enemies now have more HP. Like I really enjoy. I forget what I think it's Ascension 11 in Slay the Spire that makes it so enemies have better move sets. Like that's interesting. That's really cool. And like every enemy in Risk of Rain 2 has like if you actually like spawn as them or look into their abilities, they have every enemy in that game has four ability slots or more. I think Mithrix has more. Uh, so why is it that all these enemies have this many ability slots, but they're only using like one or two?
Mm-hmm.
Like if you made it another difficulty, like let's say we added like tsunami difficulty, and I'm not sure if that would work thematically, but that's just a name. And you made it so every enemy had another ability. That would be a difficulty that I would love because
So
that
maybe like expert in Terraria changed a lot of boss
yes,
patterns.
exactly. That's why I was so mad at Master Mode because it's like, what if enemy have more health and do more damage? Like that. That's not
Mm-hmm.
interesting. But making it so like I can't remember like Skeletron now shoots out like homing bones and stuff like that. Like that's so homing souls like that's so cool to me because that adds an entire layer onto the boss fight.
Mm-hmm.
Or like how Eater of Worlds now shoots out those little vile spit. Like that's cool. That's a really cool idea, and they did it so well in expert mode that I was super excited for master mode. Then it was just like, no, they have more HP. Like that's not cool. That's just
Yeah.
tweaking numbers. That's the laziest way to do difficulty. That's why I didn't like COD Zombies growing up, because it was, instead of making it more interesting as it goes, it was just like, now zombies take 2 bullets instead of 1 bullet. Like that's not cool. So when Eclipse came out, I was super excited because I was like, oh my god, Ascension mode, but for Risk of Rain 2. But then it turned out to just be more like, now they are faster. Like that's not
I
a good way to do
suppose
difficulty.
they did say, right, that it was kind of like a demo to see if people like it, and that the modifiers might be prone to changing in the future. So maybe Eclipse is still okay. It's just some of the modifiers are hits and some of them are misses.
Hopefully they do some updates to it, because I love the idea of Ascension mode and Risk of Rain 2.
Mm-hmm.
So this video isn't about difficulty, it's about balance, but this is very important to talk about when we get into characters and items. And those are like the two. That's gonna be the meat of the video for the most part. Uh, it's hard to talk about balance because this game has many objectives. Like, you can't just say, "Oh, you need to nerf this item because it's too good for 6mm," but then if you nerf it for 6mm, you're nerfing it for looping too. We were nerfing it for, lunar scabs. You're nerfing it for obliteration. You're nerfing it for everything. You can't have cautious slug gain power after stage 6. Like, that's not a thing that you can do. I mean, you can, but like that'd be so weird and jarring.
I feel like, yeah, it'd be unintuitive.
Uh, so it's like it. So when people say, "Oh, we need to like nerf Meat Hook," like Meat Hook's not even that great in 6mm because it does nothing up to Mithrix almost, but it's amazing in looping.
Mm-hmm.
Or like, "Oh, you need to buff Medkit because it's not good late game in looping." Well, it's really good in 6mm. So if you buff Medkit, then there's it becomes
Medkit is like a one-hit wonder on stage 1 and 2. It's incredibly powerful, yeah.
yeah. So like, if you're buffing Medkit to make it better later on in looping runs, then it's just going to heal me back up to full after Mithrix touches me. Like, that's not a good way to do it. So how do you balance this game that has this many objectives and this many crazy item interactions? Like, also, if you buff Medkit, then Corpse Bloom becomes even more insane than it already is.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, how do you do it? Well, you try things out. You should be constantly be changing numbers. Like, Hopu did a beta branch at one point. For those of you that don't know, when Mithrix came out, like a little bit afterwards, and I loved that idea. They basically just had a list of changes and were like, "Hey, we're gonna make these changes. Let us know what you think of it." And I was super excited for this, because could you imagine, Charlie? Could you imagine them releasing like number tweaks every week, like just to try things out,
Yeah.
like changing proc coefficients? Like, imagine if they did a beta branch where Saw actually had 2.0 proc coefficient, and then like a day later they're like, "Wait a second, Saw was busted the whole time. Oh no!" Like
I
that.
think that's actually an interesting thought about that, though, is that a lot of the issues, I think, is which voices are heard when discussing balance, right? Like on your chart, if this is amount of players that fall into this category, where's the line for vocality, right? Like, clearly the players at like the Monsoon and above are probably speaking, but how much of the Drizzle and Rainstorm players are going to be vocal? Like, why do we currently have the assumption that something like Crowdfunder or Saw is weak to begin with?
This is such a good question. This is why I have you on, Charlie, because that's such an amazingly good question. I have a very big dopey smile on my face right now. I'd probably put the vocality, because like Hopu is a game dev company. They don't have like a direct funnel to like the players. This is why we need to DM Gore constantly, Gore, Hopu,
Yeah.
or somebody, because they are focused on making the game as good as possible. They're not worried about balance nearly as much as the players are. At least that's my assumption. They might be obsessed with balance like we are. So I'd put the vocality probably around here, where the biggest player base is. Like, if you go on Reddit, if you go on like GD1, you'll find the majority of players are Drizzle, Rainstorm, Monsoon. Like, these players right here, where these players over here who understand. I have so many arrows on this right now. who understand how the game works at the deepest level, they don't. They're such a small version of the player base that if two groups are yelling at you, which one are you going to listen to? These people, which are like have a ton more, or these people who are like 10 people?
Yeah, I think that's kind of the big issue is that even if you have like a beta branch, you have to have
Oh gosh, I went too far.
some way to filter because a poll isn't going to work, right? Because the majority of players are going to say something like crowdfunder feels too weak or saw feels too weak because they don't know how to use it, right? A good example is when 1.0 hit. I think generally Mercenary got stronger.
Oh yeah,
Like his potential output went up a lot. Merc is very very strong right now. But a lot of people are like, "Oh, Mercenary's been nerfed. Mercenary's trash. He's useless." I saw a lot of threads. I saw a lot of people asking in the Discord, like, "Why is Mercenary so bad now?" It's like, well, I just don't think anyone really understood how to optimize it yet, right? And when the harder something is to get, like Saw, isn't exactly the most intuitive for a lot of players because you have to play a little bit differently than you do normally for multi. And because of that, I think there's a reason that a lot of people think it's not good because it's hard to use.
oh definitely,
I'm not sure how you filter that, you know?
definitely, and this is why I want to kidnap Cylon away from Elder Scrolls Online because good lord, that's all he plays nowadays. Seriously, every time I go on Steam, let me see if he's doing it right now. Let me see if he's doing it right now. It'd be really funny. Oh, hey, there he is playing the Elder Scrolls Online.
Yeah.
That's all he does. That's why we haven't done that Building Behemoth video. Because
Ah,
he is just obsessed with Elder Scrolls Online right now, and he's probably the best mercenary player, like bar Cabbage, possibly, as far as I know. And like he
yeah,
just
Cabbage is good.
and like
Yeah.
the this is why people think crowdfunding is bad. This is why people think mercenary is bad. This is why people think that uh, it doesn't help. And I know we talk about this a lot on my channel that there is basically one voice in this community, and that's Wooly. Like the one really loud voice in this community. So if Wooly says something's bad, a ton of people like this player base right here, who aren't nearly as invested into the game as we are, this player base right here, hear that and don't take the time to actually try it themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And like everyone used to be part of this community at one point, like this group. Like I used to think that hey, Piggle Dapper was playing Esper. He's probably working on the thumbnails. Hell yeah. Uh, I used to think that crowdfunder was garbage. I used to think Saw was garbage. I used to have a lot of really bad opinions about this video game
Yeah.
because
Well, I think there's a lot of intuitive stuff like that. Like it just feels like it makes sense, you know?
yeah, and that's one of the reasons I started doing this is because I wanted to talk about these like lesser known item interactions and lesser known like really strong things. Because if you can play a video game and have fun with it, but if you are limiting your options because you think this thing is bad, then you aren't having as much fun as you could be.
Mm-hmm.
And
That's true.
let's take that and actually get into item balance ideas because like people will say things like, "Oh, make leeching seed a white." Oh, make like a lot of tier changes. Like, oh, you should make Frost Relic a green. You should make Lepton Daisy a white. This stuff like that. And I think what people don't understand is it's not power level that decides an item; it's stackability. That's why a bunch of raid items stack like garbage, is because you're not meant to get a bunch of them. Like if Lepton Daisy
Right.
was a white and you find a Lepton Daisy printer and you print 10 Lepton Daisies, you have a Lepton Daisy going off every 10% on the teleporter. That's a
Yeah, you've
50%
kind of
heal.
taken away the reason that people feel it's underwhelming is it's difficult to control. If it's just always pulsing, then that's gone. You know, now it's just really, really strong.
Like, could you imagine 10 Lepton Daisies with the Nukaha's opinion?
Yeah.
Like that that's 10 white items and you never have to worry about health again. Like that's well during the teleporter event, but like that's insane, right? Like there's no reason for it to be a white item.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that's why you'll see a bunch of items in the white tier have like bad like not bad effects, but like low impact effects. But the more you stack them, the more impactful they get.
Yeah,
Uh,
I think that if something is moving, some items don't work. Like I feel like Lepton Daisy might work as a white item, but you'd have to reimagine it with the stacking ease in mind.
This is why Guillotine was so busted as a white item, because you could get so many of them so quickly.
Yeah.
It's
Well, I
like,
think initially the numbers were broken too, so it stacked faster than it did now as well, which is pretty funny.
wait, is that true? That's
I think
funny.
so. I think it was like 20%. I'd have to check the notes again, but
Yeah, I think it was. I think they nerfed it in 1.0.
hmm
But that's why they made it a green item, because then it was still a very powerful item, but now you could get less of them. And
yeah.
people like making. I'm calling out Groove Salad right now. They made Razor Wire a red, and yeah, Razor Wire is really powerful, but it stacks really well. And getting one of them isn't nearly as impactful as, like, let's say a Tesla Coil or Brilliant Behemoth. Like, it doesn't belong in the red tier. But I will give Groove this credit. They made Squid Polyp a red and made it inherit all your items, which I absolutely love that idea. That is such a cool idea. It's so sick.
Wait, I didn't hear that one. That sounds funny.
It's so sick because it's like, what if you just got an engineer turret as a red
Yeah,
item?
NG Light.
Like, that's so cool. I think they like limited the amount that you could have on screen at once or something like that on your team. But like, it's such a sick idea, and I think they came up with it. If not, I'll put the actual person who came up with it on screen. But that's so sick to me. So they get credit for that one. But you can't just change an item's tier and then bam, balance is done. Like, that's not a thing you can do. Is what I'm trying to say. And when people talk about gesture, God, do we want to talk about gesture in this video? Do we want to wait? Because that's gonna be like an hour-long conversation.
Yeah, just there's a lot. Gesture's a loaded topic, you know?
It's a lot to talk about, and like I'll have to find the quote and put it on screen. But Gore said that the original concept of gesture was your equipment's more powerful, but you lose control of it, which is a really sick concept. But that's not what gesture does. So when people talk about nerfing gesture, it really just needs to be reworked. But then if you rework it, then oops, there goes tonic, there goes, uh, like, there goes blast shower, there goes a lot of really strong equipment that are really good when you have permanent uptime on them. So
I think that's the problem is that it's so impactful that it is kind of entangled with all of equipment balance right now. Like you could say the same for fuel cell, but I think fuel cell is low impact enough in like what you would normally get in a run that it's not that. But gesture complete by itself changes how you use equipment entirely.
there are times where I completely forget that fuel cell gives you another charge because I almost always have a gesture. The downside of gesture is that you can't use crowdfunder as well,
hmm
and that's if you're not multi. If you're multi, you can have a crowdfunder on your second on your other weapon and have a gesture as well. So you can have a capacitor on one and then a crowdfunder on two. Like, multi's so broken. He's so cool. Uh,
Multi is powerful. Yeah.
and that's kind of the issue with gesture is that they want to do this really cool concept where you lose control of your equipment, but you can't change gesture without completely destroying some equipment. Like, tonic's probably the biggest one that comes to mind when I think about uh, if gesture was gone. Like, tonic
Yeah.
would just be tonic would be awful. Like it's got 60 seconds, and like if gesture was gone, the only way you could get more charges of it would be fuel cell and like
You need
soulbound.
what, like 7 to get 100% uptime?
Something like that. It's a lot, is the thing. I've got 7 green items. I feel like if they added more
I've
ways,
even gotten it, and the quality of life goes a long way because if you make a mistake and you forget even for a second, then you get those afflictions, and you'd think, well, it's not a huge deal if you know, even if you don't die, you just hit the button, then you don't have afflictions anymore. But then it matters in if you go to Mithrix, because if you keep the 100% uptime and you have no afflictions, when he steals your items, it's not as bad because you only get a handful. Whereas if you've got a bunch saved up from occasional oopsies during the run, you get hit with, 20, 30 afflictions, and
yeah.
now you're screwed, You have to wait. Even if you kill him with the one charge that you get, you kill phase 4, you now have to deal with 30 afflictions for 25 or 30 seconds, while the like moon detonation is happening, and you have no movement speed and you have no health.
Yeah, I have a stream highlight, which I plan to do that more actually. Around when this video comes out, I'll be streaming Risk of Rain 1. I have not played it very much, maybe like 5-10 hours in that game. And I want to when people say like, "Oh yeah, just like the item in Rescuing One," I want to actually understand what they're talking about.
Get the reference.
Yes, thank you by the way, Charlie, for your save file, so I don't have to unlock everything.
No problem. Hopefully it serves you well.
It should. But I have a stream highlight of that exact same scenario where I got a tonic with gesture early, thinking like, oh, I have like 3 shops coming up. I'll find another gesture or two, and I didn't. So I had that exact scenario where, uh, for like 3 seconds, I had like 30 afflictions, and that's
Mm-hmm.
going to be the norm if gesture is gone. The best way I saw that somebody had changed gesture, and this is credit to Tarluck by the way, we went over his balance sheet in the lab VC before we started recording this. He made it a red item, which I think you should just make a completely different item if you're going to do this. And he made it so you could toggle on or off the automatic activation, which I
Yeah.
really like because then it's a very very powerful red item, but it doesn't completely destroy certain equipment. So it's not like, oh, do I pick this up or not?
It's not like a feels bad if you have even if I feel like even if I've got something like Prion or Black Hole, and because sometimes I like to use this. Okay, there's
I don't know why.
there's kind of this sad or like you want to run Recycler, right? Or sometimes even something like Sommering. You might want a little bit more control. So the CDR isn't always worth it. Sometimes even if it might be better, you're enjoying not using it more. And skipping a lunar item and skipping a red item, I think are very different. So having the toggle is I think the key to the make gesture red. Because I think if you don't have that, if someone is just arguing to make gesture red, I think that's terrible. Because I never want to get gesture and feel like, oh well, I have to take it because it's super strong and it's my red item and I don't want to skip it. But well, there goes the fun that I was having, playing with Black Hole or Recycler. Now I have to get rid of it.
And then you have to pick up capacitor or like disposable missile
It's like a
launcher or something like that.
forced pivot, yeah.
Yeah,
Like if you get it from a lunar pod, you're like, okay, well I can just, if I see tonic later, I can cycle bazaar and try and find one.
and you
But if
could
it's a red item, you can't really try and find it.
and you can argue like, oh, if you don't like gesture, just don't use it. But then it feels bad because I'm handicapping myself because there's this really strong thing that I could be doing right now, but I'm choosing not to do it, which makes my run worse. Like that's not a good idea.
It feels bad.
It does. It feels really bad as a player, and feeling it's a video game. Like I'm playing this to relieve stress from like work or something like that. I shouldn't have to handicap myself to have fun. That shouldn't be a thing that I have to do. And that gets back
Yeah.
to the
And
whole like which players do you cater to?
yeah. Well, I don't think there are very many items you skip in this game.
There are very very few
Um, Actually,
non-lunars. I will say.
well, yeah, but I think that's the design of lunars,
Yeah,
right? Lunars are designed to be potentially skippable. Most other items don't really like I guess Wake of Vultures, maybe because if you don't want the shield, I could see that. But otherwise, I mean, I don't really think you skip any items. Um, I think Jester as a red, you'd have to contend with that.
you could
And the toggle I think helps.
you could argue tougher times because of how strong Hellwire is, but that's like a very very niche situation.
True. Well, I guess yeah, and if you're building for like transcendence or like shield in general, maybe healing isn't. I don't know. But I think that's more educated as opposed to like general. I think maybe specializing is okay,
Yeah.
but just generally seeing an item and being like, oh, I shouldn't take that because it's going to be bad, right? Like if a lot of lunar items were in a tier, right? Like I think we were talking about what tier would items be if they or lunar items if they weren't lunar. Like where would Corpse Bloom go? It's
Oh
like okay,
God,
well,
that's a
Corpse
very hard
Bloom
question.
is only slightly worse than Rejuvrac in its upside, and it's got the downside. So it probably would feel awful as a red because
But
it would
like,
just be worse Rejuvrac.
but
So
like the
maybe green.
downside, like the downside could be even like considered an upside because the healing starts immediately after you get hit.
Mm-hmm. But then it's like, okay, well, if Corpse Bloom was a green item, and you were in a situation where you wouldn't want to take it, that would suck because you'd save up 2 chests worth of cash. You know, you open your large chest and out pops Corpse Bloom, and you're like, well, I have a lot of healing already. I don't really want this. I guess I'll leave. You know,
Yeah,
to me
exactly.
that feels even worse than like because then you're like, well, I could take it and scrap it later, but I have to deal with being weaker in the immediate and like I don't know. I feel like that's something that they generally steer away from.
It's like how people would sometimes skip head stompers because they don't want the weird floaty jump. Which, by the way, that
Oh
item is
yeah,
insane, and we are making a video on that because that is.
I don't like the I don't like the floatiness on head stumpers.
But the damage is so
But you can
insane.
yeah,
Like,
well, and you can just activate it to turn that off when you don't want it. So
yeah,
it's
like,
okay.
I feel like they should make it so if you hold jump, you get the floaty jump. So that way you still get it, but you don't get it all the time.
I would be fine with that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Artie though, it used to be like that, right? In Artie, it used to be hold to activate the effect, and it messed with hover.
I don't remember that being a thing, but I didn't play Artie a lot before 1.0 when I started
Yeah,
doing
it used to be
Wizards.
that if you held jump in midair, you would do the slam, and it broke hover. So that's why they changed it.
That's funny. But
I guess if it's just floatiness, it would probably be fine. It would just be hover plus.
speaking of speaking of characters, so you have let's see, let me draw this real quick. So you have the big one right here, Loader. Then you have like characters like Captain. Let me find a color for him. I'll do blue. No, blue would be mercenary. It'd be great gray. That's Captain. I cannot draw very well with
This is this is a powerful list.
You have mercenary. You have like these are then you have like Acrid. Let me do this one. Like Acrid. Then you have like then you have Artie. You have all these characters, and I don't know why I drew them like that. Uh, but these are I think these are like I think Loader and Captain are the two that people say are like the strongest in the game. That's what like the general people say. Like, what was that? What was the poll when I asked about who the most powerful? It was like the first few polls I did. I need to do more polls. Most
That's
powerful survival in terms of consistency for 6mm. 10 people. Actually, I think 9. Yeah, because I did the. So 9 people voted Captain for the strongest in 6mm, and 6 people voted Loader. Now for looping, they actually voted multi. 7 people voted. By the way, no votes for multi on most powerful in 6mm, but 7 votes for looping. So why like when you see a list like this where the difference between multi getting 7 votes for looping and 0 votes for 6mm is like this is why I love this game so much because it's a very very different game. Where like multi is so much more powerful when he's not fighting Mithrix.
yeah.
And Captain, which by the way, 5 votes for it, so like half the votes for Captain and looping. Uh, it's it's insane to me the difference here. And Loader, who people say needs a nerf the most, didn't win either of those. And this is again, this is in a Discord where people are very educated about the game. You know, they're in this blue tier right here. These are people that understand the game a lot. So then, why are this group right here yelling that Loader needs a nerf so badly? What do you think, Charlie?
I think that's a good question. I think Loader is. I feel like she missed a lot of votes. Like she did pretty well in the 6mm. I do think Loader actually is a little bit weaker into the late game, but I don't know how much the other like the Drizzle or Rainstorm community plays long 3-hour runs. I think a lot of that community is like the people who are just popping in for quick runs, where they want to get to a win con and then like just be done. You know, they want to fight Mithrix or obliterate and then stop, or even less. You know, I think this is a lot of the people who get home from work and just want to play for 20, 30 minutes, and are the most adamant, like the vocal for like a save feature.
Yeah,
Um, and I think that affects it a lot because it means that characters that have a lot of upfront strength are going to be a lot stronger. Someone like Loader can just kind of like hold left click on your stage 1, sometimes stage 2 boss, regardless of what items she gets, and just not be in any danger of dying at all. Like the bosses just can't do anything. Um, and because of that, a lot of people are like, "This is too good." You know, I when I play Huntress and when I play Commando, I have to like dodge or I get beamed and I die. You know.
Yeah. And I don't think Loader or Captain is the best in 6mm. It's actually kind of funny. My opinion is that Artie is the best for 6mm because
Mm.
she has a really easy time getting to Mithrix, and she just freezes Mithrix and cheeses him out super easily with Nanosphere and Ice Wall. So like Artie, Akron's actually amazing in 6mm too. I don't know why he actually got he got 3 votes in both polls. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
so what like why? So like why when you go to educate people, like is the opinion so drastically different?
I think it hinges a lot on how people play too.
That is also
Like
true.
characters that people like, like I think Captain is overranked a lot.
Oh,
I
definitely.
think Captain I don't think is anywhere close to like OP power level. I don't think Captain is a free win just for playing him. Um, I think you can still be struggling if you're behind on stage, 2 or 3, if you're not like getting what you need or like not super experienced in pathing through the stages very efficiently. Um, like his damage output is very good. I think a lot of people feel like he's too strong because of his M1. His shotgun is just so strong. So it feels really punchy. It feels really impactful. You see all this damage coming out of his M1, But I think it's easy to like miss that a lot of other characters are going to be putting out similar damage across their whole kit.
Oh yeah, my one of my favorite things to get is a Brilliant Behemoth as captain because you just hear like the meaty crunch. It reminds me of a Ravager in
Yeah,
Borderlands 2. It feels so
yeah.
good to shoot. Uh, so like, do you want to show? Can you pull up the spreadsheet, like the DPS spreadsheet for every character across their entire kit? I want to show this. I
No,
want to show this. You cannot.
no, I can. Hold on.
Okay, I was about to say that'd be not
Uh,
great. But yeah, Charlie has a spreadsheet. She has many spreadsheets. Good lord, uh, on DPS in this game, and there are a few that really surprised me when it came to like
so
maximum DPS at like level 1 or so. I think you said
this is something that we've been like looking over because I kind of made this as a theory thing because it was funny.
it is funny.
Um,
You know, like
so
I want to say this right now. This is so overwhelming to look at.
go to the bottom. This is everything.
It's funny
There's a lot of tabs.
because I make these like very informative like analytical videos. People will come to me with a bunch of numbers, and I'm like, I can't do this. like
So if you go to the
I had to
tabs at the
retake
bottom,
algebra 1 in high school. Like I can't do this. Tabs at the bottom.
this is like my master sheet. This is like all you can see the tabs. This is all my Risk of Rain crap that I've
Oh
been
my
throwing together for
god,
funsies.
Charlie, you're
Um,
insane.
there's a lot of
Good
tabs.
God! What?
There's a lot of tabs.
Blisterane,
So if
Foreign
you ever
Sprite.
want to see funny numbers, there's a lot of tabs.
Good God! What
Um,
the? So is this public? Can I link this or no?
yeah. This is the one that I shared in the lab, so it's freely editable.
Oh,
Um,
we should make a like a viewable only one.
yeah,
Yeah, we
that
don't
I
want
will probably do that.
we don't want people messing with this. Boy, it's
I'll make
comments
a
only right now,
copy.
so like I can't edit it at all.
Oh, oh, well, it's supposed to be editable,
Yeah,
but maybe
I can't edit it.
maybe
I
I
can't
broke it.
change anything. Well,
Okay, well,
it's a good break in
maybe
this sense because now
yeah.
honestly, maybe even having
Um,
comments on would be bad if this video blows up. It's just like
public. Well, yeah, I'll probably make a copy so that you know people can play with it.
oh,
if they feel.
is this for Ducks mod? Or like what was
Yeah,
it? Remember Cobalt
I
Shield?
like to just throw numbers in here all the
No,
time.
let me rant about this for a second. This is I remember I got a lot of feedback when I started doing this a lot that I was very rambly. This is why. That's another reason I have Charlie here to stop me from doing this. But let me just go off this one time. So
Yeah.
Duck made an entire like mod pack. And he had a bunch of items. One of them was a Cobalt Shield. And how much armor did it give when standing still? I forget.
Initially, in the version that I first tried it, it was supposed to be 10 all the time and 70 while standing still, but it was broken and it gave you 10 and then 80 while standing still for
Wow.
90 total armor. And
That's
there's no
so...
delay, so it's just as soon as it was a green item, and as soon as you stood still, you got 90 armor.
It's a
It was
green
very
item that gives
strong.
90 armor. like
It has
if you've
since been
seen my
changed a lot.
if you've seen
But
my Rose Buckler video, you know how impactful armor is. So when I hear modders or like people just being like, "Oh, just increase the amount of armor it gives you," or just like throw some armor on it, like armor is so powerful.
I got two Mithrix with I think like 3 or 4 of that item and like 3 bustling fungus. And as long as you were standing still, Mithrix couldn't kill you.
You
He could not deal enough damage.
That's with 3 green items, and like I'm pretty sure at that point you'd only need like 1 or 2 bustling fungus, and you'd be immortal.
Yeah. So it is definitely
It also gave you immunity to knockback, if I remember correctly, right? The
yeah,
Cobalt Shield,
yeah.
because it was
That's
a
why it
Terraria
synergized
reference.
so well. If it canceled bustling fungus every time you got hit, probably wouldn't be as insane. But it was designed to synergize with fungus. So yeah, it was a very fun item. It's I'm pretty sure it's a red item now, which prevents the stackability, right? Because the effect is neat, but the problem was that if you found even a cauldron in the bazaar, you could just go all in, and the armor would make you unslayable.
I hit my head on the desk because I was so frustrated, and now it hurts a little bit. I forgot my desk is like pointed right here. But yeah, like this goes back to what we were saying. Like it's not just the item's effect; it's also the stackability. Like getting 2 Cobalt Shields, like even though they're red item, that's still possible with like the bazaar and like Woodfield and stuff like that. I said like so many times in that sentence.
Well,
But
even just from chests, right? Like you're
even,
not
even
unlikely to hit duplicates of greens. Hitting duplicates of red is a lot less common.
yeah, it's too stackable. It's too stackable. So
Actually,
you
even
forgot.
then, it's not even the stacks. It's just the likelihood of getting it. Like your chances of getting a specific red is not always guaranteed. And even in an obliteration run, you're not necessarily going to hit a specific red. So reds kind of are what shape. They're like the cores that shape what else you look for from like multi shops. Whereas like a green, if you go for 7 or 8 stages, you're pretty darn likely to get at least one of a green.
Yeah.
You know.
Honestly, building your run around the strong greens that you get is probably the best way to play the game.
Yeah, for sure.
It's like you get an ATG missile launcher on stage 1, and I'm pretty sure you're going to pick up a crowdfunder if you see one.
Hmm.
And same way if you get like a Renault's band. Like if I was playing Commando and I got a Renault's band and that was like, and like I kept getting items that synergize with the capacitor, I'm gonna take capacitor. Like that's just how the game should work.
Yeah.
You shouldn't always be like, well, I'm Commando, so I need on hits, so I'm gonna grab a crowdfunder. Like that's not. You should always be looking at the items that you have.
Hmm.
That's just a way to play the game. So where do I find the? Let's get back to what we were actually talking about. Where do I
Yeah.
find the DPS here?
So at the bottom there should be an ability damage. Oh, it's up more, up more, and more. Keep going. Keep going.
Ability damage. There we are.
Yep. So the ability procs is not finished. I'm working on total damage synergy, but this is just theory for character DPS.
So this is like their kit working at maximum potential. So like Huntress is hitting all of her glaives, Commando's hitting all shots of his suppressive fire and phase blast, stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and I list in the so at the top is like a full, and then it's each character in order, and I list in like the name like what is going. So like for Commando, I've got grenade with 1 hit in the center and 1 AOE hit, because I don't think that that's unreasonable to have happen.
Yeah.
Um, So yeah, it's generally a lot of it is kind of like the averages. Actually, something we did recently, Wither from the Discord has been trying to do a lot more in-depth testing. So things like accounting for the time spent shooting on suppressive fire, or like the time spent in
Ooh.
ballista as Huntress, because that's time that you're not firing your M1. So that will be a lot more
Accurate.
like close to reality. Yeah, especially for someone like Mercenary, where I'm doing a lot of guessing on how much value you're getting from expose and like how much CDR you're actually getting. Those numbers I think are different from the reality, depending
But
on how well you play.
like even if we say you're about 10 off on each, like because that
Hmm.
shouldn't be too impactful. It should be like 50. Like that shouldn't change the numbers by like 50. It should change by about 10, 15, stuff like that.
Hmm.
This is still like about as close as we're gonna get at the moment until Wither's done with that testing. So the fact
Yeah,
that Huntress is all the way down here is crazy to me. Because
you
people,
can actually, if you scroll all the way to the bottom. Well, I did this like yesterday, I think. I fought a bunch of bosses. I fought Stone Titans with the same loadouts that I used in this sheet, and I timed them. And this is the times. So
Average
this is what we ended up with.
average DPS 76, 102 expected. Deviants. Oh my gosh.
So Huntress is weaker than I thought she would
Oh,
be.
Mercenary actually did the best. That's kind of
Because
sick.
her, yeah, because her AOE is so bad.
And this
Mercenary
was
actually got with her to do.
and this was when you were playing like as optimally as possible.
As best I could do within reason, yeah. So if you go up above this one, this like the block, this is kind of like the actual times. It's like Loader was worse than I expected, which is probably due to me not being very good at her. Um, like it's really easy to punch and then like yeet yourself off and waste a bunch of time having to come back, you know?
That is true. You'd have to like
And that stuff is hard to put into a document that's just theory.
Loader and Mercenary are probably the highest skill ceiling characters in this game. I'd reckon. Just because their movement is so insane and like getting optimal damage, like where there's like as little downtime as humanly possible is crazy. Which is
Yeah,
another reason
even
why I'm fine
someone
with her
like,
being
like
as strong as she
Rex.
is right now.
You can see Rex's time goes up substantially on the 5 bosses as opposed to 1 or 2. So the 3 rightmost columns are the actual times. It's like Rex is 17 seconds for 1 boss, which is really fast. 23 seconds for 2 Stone Titans, which is still pretty fast. Because you're able to keep them both
It's 50?
reasonably in the AoE of Sea Barrage and the Shift, and you can keep them both weakened. The 5 bosses spikes the duration because it's a lot harder to keep 5 Titans weakened at the same time.
Huh. That's crazy.
And his M1 is single target. So you'll notice like Huntress, her times get a lot worse.
130?
I was using Ballista.
Oh
And Ballista doesn't really have AoE. That time got better. I did the same test with Strafe and Arrow Rain, and it was only 80 seconds. So it was a lot faster. And that's kind of like, I don't know, I was playing with AI disabled. So on 5 perfectly grouped, unmoving Titans, it's better. But, you know, in practice, her AoE is just not that good. So when you add a lot of targets, because her single target isn't terrible. I mean, it's slow, but it's not, you know, unplayably slow. It's as soon as you have multiple targets, that's when things really start to slog.
What's crazy to me going back up here is that everyone says that Huntress is so great and like Commando. Well, not everyone, but you know what I mean. I think like everyone in the lab Discord, like I think like 90% of the people in the lab Discord do not like Huntress, which is really funny to me.
Yeah.
And like
And
people,
not for the feeling, like Tarlok has mentioned this a lot too. Like Huntress feels really good to play. The problem is just that her output is just so low.
yeah, and people will say like, oh, Huntress is like, I think Wooly put her as like high tier or something like that in his tier list. Which God, I have so many problems with that tier list, but it like
She's super mobile.
yeah, she's super mobile.
That's it.
But the issue is that she does less damage than Commando, and this is like again, this is considering like Glaive hits all targets and stuff like that.
Yeah, and Glaive is a lot of her. You can actually, so if you go down, if you look at on the left, like where the Huntress block actually is, you can see the actual DPS. Actually, can I click on this?
Where is it?
Technically in the same document.
Possibly. You're in the top right. I think this is you anyway.
Can you see?
Yeah,
you
I
can
can
what
see. I can
highlight.
see. Yeah, I can see where you were. Pixel
Yeah,
Star.
so like, so here's your Ballista, right?
Yeah,
And
727.
here's the percent that it deals total. So it deals 900% 3 times for 2,700. I narrowed it down to a multiplier, so like 100% is 1 times. So 2,700% is 27 times her base damage.
Yeah, so 27.
Then you divide it by the cooldown, and you get it's 225% per second.
Okay.
Which, when you account for her base damage at level 1, is 27 DPS. You know.
It's so
Um,
it's so crazy to me. And then you have her M2 over here, which is doing just substantially more. Like,
yeah.
that's a
so
whole
Glaive at full value is hitting for quite a lot.
so much.
Um,
It's just it.
Yeah.
This is why I like this game because like there's so much you could go like in depth with it. And again, like Commando's down here, Engineer, and this is considering both of the turrets are like firing.
Yep.
Artificer, I'm assuming this is with Flamethrower.
Artificer is actually another one that's really variable because all of her stuff is AoE. So this is Artificer's single target damage. If you look at the chart, the times down below, her times are actually really, really good for multiple bosses. So Artificer, it's 23, 22, and then 41. So her times don't get that much worse from having a lot extra targets because flamethrower pierces, right? And
Yeah.
ion the bomb, nano bomb is AOE.
So is Ion Surge.
Yep.
Just saying.
So her ability to thin through multiple targets is going to be a lot better than some others. So Artie's DPS would technically go up if she could consistently hit multiple targets.
So let's get back to what we're talking about with balance. So like if looking at
Yeah,
this
for
sheet
sure.
right here, where it says Loader has 100 more DPS than Huntress over here. So how do you balance this? How do you make it so Huntress and Loader are around the same power level? Do you bring Loader down? Do you buff Huntress up? Like what do you do? Well,
Hmm.
the answer here is that it's not. It's hard. It's hard to do that because if you nerf Loader, then people who enjoy playing Loader right now will feel bad. Like when Mercenary was nerfed, like he got more damage, but he's harder to play now. So those people in this area now don't play Mercenary as much anymore because now he's harder to play. People
Hmm.
over here now enjoy Mercenary more because he's harder to play. But if you take away, like, let's say you nerf Loader's regen, like you make it so she doesn't have melee regen anymore. Now
Hmm.
these players are upset because that's one of the reasons they like playing Loader. Where these players are happy because now Loader is harder to play, so the game is more fun because now the game is harder. And it's like, how? What's the answer to this question? And at the moment, it's hard to come up with one. The only one that I can come up with is a like in Mario sports games. There's a star mechanic where like after you beat, I can't remember what exactly how you actually unlock it, but let's say after you beat Monsoon, you get the mastery skin, you unlock a special version of the character that has more complex and in-depth mechanics. I feel like that would be the best way to keep all of these sections happy, because then you can have these players playing the harder version of the character. Like let's say you take Loader and you nerf all of her base stats and you like nerf her damage, but you make heavy a lot more important. So that way
Hmm.
you're it's she's harder to play, but she's also more complex. And then these people over here can still play the old version of Loader, who is a lot more simple to play. You
I think one of the really controversial changes for Loader in particular is fall damage, right?
oh my
A
god.
lot of veteran players are comfortable and even feel fine with removing her fall damage immunity because they feel
God,
like it forces them to play more technically and aim the punches more or risk getting
I
punished. Whereas a
played
lot of people on the other camp are like, they feel like they're getting punished for playing Loader properly, right?
I'm in this section, I swear, but I played Groove's balance mod pack. Shout out to Groove, he's great, but I played his balance mod and he removed fall damage on Loader and also like changed cooldowns and a bunch of other stuff with Loader making her a lot harder to play. And I killed myself so often with without having fall damage because I'm used to like going straight up with grapple then punching down because that's what I do.
Hmm.
So I can punch down and start punching with her M1. So I'll punch straight down, take a bunch of fall damage, and then die.
Yeah,
And
I think even something like encouraging people to use movement speed for the heavy and punch through and then use the hook to pull yourself back and not take fall damage could be interesting. I don't, I think we've kind of talked about it. I think I have to try it before having like a real opinion. I think maybe like some level of fall damage resistance, like maybe 50% is probably okay. But I mean, yeah, it's true that, she kind of just by nature of making her more fun to play, she nullifies an entire game mechanic.
yeah,
It's a full eclipse modifier. It's an artifact, right? Frailty is a full effect, and Loader just completely ignores it. The immunity to fall damage is the effect of a red item that she just kind of gets for free.
and there's another boon to doing the star character system where you can have it so Loader doesn't have this fall damage in the star version of her because now she's harder to play. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and it also helps the effect where Commando is the starting character, so you can't make him too complex with the new players. Because I've played a few Roblox, I'm not gonna name any by name, where I've just been bombarded with numbers right out the gate, and I'm like, I don't want to play this. Like I haven't even started the game yet, and I already like it's already throwing
It's a
so much
lot to
math
take
at
in.
me. So how do you keep Commando really like? How do you keep players coming back to Commando, like veteran players coming back to Commando when he's boring, like when he's vanilla? you can make the star version of him way more complex. Like I can't think of I have to actually think about a way to do that, but that's you won't have to worry about the oh wait, new players are going to see this and hate it. You don't have to worry about that anymore. And a game that does this really well, and I know I've referenced it a lot because I absolutely love the game, Slay the Spires Ironclad. Like Ironclad at the surface has three like big like synergies. He has like block, he has strength, and he has exhaust, which I'm not gonna get I'm not gonna get into deck archetypes. That's not a thing in Slay the Spire, but like uh you can do really complicated infinites with him, and that's what keeps. And like you have feed, which is a thing where if you kill the target with it, you gain more max HP. So he has meta scaling. He has so many cool things that keeps veteran players coming back to him instead of him just being really boring. He's very simple, but he's not boring. Where Commando is, I'm going to hold M1, and eventually this guy's gonna die.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's
I think a lot of people try and do something similar with alt abilities, and I'm not sure if that's enough. Because like a lot of people say that Commando gets a lot more fun to play when you unlock the alts. You know, when your utility or when your special isn't just slightly better M1, but is like something new and unique. I think that feels a lot better. But I don't know.
yeah,
Like, how do you change the fundamentals of a character like that? I guess passives. I don't know.
yeah. But if you add a really complicated passive, then the new players are going to see that and not like it. That's why I like the Star Killer system so much because you could add a new passive to like Huntress, NG, and Commando. These characters who don't have them but really need them to be more interesting, and you can make them really complicated, and like it won't turn new players away from the game.
Hmm.
Uh, so I feel like that's anything else you want to talk about, or are we gonna wrap up? That's been an entire hour.
That's a lot. Yeah, there's a lot about I guess we already touched on like
Oh God,
skill intensity, right?
the balance video is 57 minutes long. How long is the bleed video going to be? Oh no,
Well, maybe I shouldn't mention that we've barely touched item balance.
no, we haven't.
Like we talked about gesture a lot. We talked about like stackability, but I mean, I guess it's fine. Maybe because I think there's still things worth bringing up, right? Something like the Leeching Seed Harvester Scythe dichotomy, right? Is Shatterspleen too good? Are proc chains too? Are Yuke and ATG just the best green items?
Oh my
Because
God, what would
there's something like is bleed. I guess we're gonna make a video about bleed itself, but something like bleed being a viable win condition for the game, and it's just one white item.
well,
There's no other.
it's
synergies.
7 white items like.
Well, yeah, I mean you have
At
to stack it,
least.
but I mean it's one piece. It's not like things are working together. There's no synergy. You find one printer. And
Yeah,
then
it's not
you
like
stack.
it's not like Hellwire with like Repulsion Armor Plate and Fuel Cells Gesture, stuff like that. Like that's an entire set where Bleed is just Bleed Crowdfunder. That's literally all you need. Is just Crowdfunder, Brittle Crown, and Tri-Tip. That's it.
Because there's a lot of questions about stuff like that. Like, is Harvester's Scythe too good? Is Leeching Seed too weak? Is it a little of both? You know.
Yeah,
And I feel like how do you appeal these things as well?
God,
But like how abusable are stacking certain items?
you just listing all of these questions, and I feel so overwhelmed. How does Hopu feel? Good God.
I know.
Because
Well,
they're the ones who actually have to fix this stuff.
Yeah. Something like Alien Head. I think a lot of people feel like Alien Head is underwhelming because it's just not that impactful. But like, how do you
Especially
tackle all these problems?
Especially if you're multi, like poor multi, dude. But when he gets an alien head, like, oh, my right click's now faster.
Are you ready for a hot take? Here's a good one.
Uh-oh.
Tesla Coil. Tesla Coil is an incredibly powerful.
It's very,
item. It has
very
a
strong.
lot of things
My-
going for it.
My favorite, I'm sorry to cut you off, my favorite 6MM run ever was before, actually, no, Tesla still hasn't been blacklisted. I got a Tesla Stage 1 as Mercenary on the 6MM run, and, like, after I've been playing the game for a while, I can't remember exact. I think this was around like September. I think the update dropped in August, right? Like a month after 1.0. I think it was like August 11th. I don't remember, but it might have been October. But it was like a month after the game was like 1.0 was released. So I already understood how the Mythrix mechanic worked. How you get items back in reverse order. So I was like, do I pick this up? because like Phase Four Mythic is going to destroy me if I pick this up because I want to get this back for a
Yeah.
while. So this was before they added a visual animation to Tesla,
Hmm.
and Phase Four Mithrix became so insane because I was mercenary. So I'm a melee character, and this guy has a Tesla coil. I ended up winning the run, but it was the most insane, like, get in, get the damage, get out, like, run I've ever had in my entire life, and it was so fun.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, because I think Tesla is one of the number one complaints in Void Fields.
Oh, easily,
And
easily. I hate that.
and
It's so dumb.
my thought is, I remember when Mithrax first dropped as well. A lot of people were complaining about Phase 4. This is before they made him invulnerable too. So if you were strong enough, you could just kill him while he was taking the items. And a lot of people were still complaining about something like Tesla. And I think the problem is that Tesla adds so much value to your build. It's so powerful stat wise that it can artificially make you think you're stronger than you are. Like your build or your like skill level might not actually be that strong, but Tesla is just playing the
Oh,
game.
God, we haven't even talked about autoplay.
Yeah. Well, and I think that that's a very real problem because then when Mithrix comes and slurps up all your items, now that thing that you thought was you thought you were set, you thought you were so strong, every teleporter boss died immediately. But you weren't actually that strong. Even if you get half your items back, if you're still missing that Tesla, it's adding so much value to your kit,
Mhm.
you know.
I'm
And
gonna
now
take
and now someone else has it.
I'm gonna take off the Steam notifications because I keep seeing people like pop up in my bottom right in the video
Ah.
where like Eon is now playing Hades. Shout out to that guy by the way, he's awesome.
But yeah, I don't know. I feel like Tesla's a little overstated. A lot of people talk about Clover. How would you even balance something like Clover? How do you make Clover weaker?
I don't think honestly I feel like Clover being like the red item isn't a bad thing
Mm-hmm.
because I think it's unique in what it does. The actual effect is kind of boring. How do I even get rid of this? I don't know. I'm gonna mess with that later. Whatever. I'm gonna focus on this. But like Clover, I feel like as long as a red item isn't more powerful than Tesla or Clover, it's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Um, or like daggers, like those are the three big ones in my opinion. Those are the three like really powerful red items. So if you want to introduce an item into the red tier and you're like, is this more broken than Tesla, Clover, or daggers? And if the answer is
Yeah.
yes, don't add that item. If
I
the
guess the
answer
other question is like all of the strongest red items seem to just be like heavily proc synergy. Like Clover is good because it makes your procs better, right? Like Tesla is good because it starts a lot of high power proc chains. Like Dagger is good because it's global proc chain starter. You know, like it's a lot less impactful if you don't have your ATG and you can Molten Perforator. Because it just flies out. It does more damage than Wisp. It's homing. That's cool, but it doesn't really like infinitely chain itself. You know.
without procs, it does infinitely change
Yeah.
itself after you actually kill things. That's one of my biggest issue with daggers. People are like, "Oh, nerf the damage, nerf the proc proficient." I'd say it lasts too long because like you can
Yeah.
kill a bunch of beetles and then you have just a pool of daggers that's just going to go out and kill everything.
Waiting for the next spawn. Yeah.
Yeah, where if and Duck's mod tried to eliminate all forms of autoplay, so they like one of the silliest Duck's heart's in the right place, but I one of the silliest changes they've ever done was remove the proc coefficient from fireworks. Like nerfing fireworks, I don't think is the right play
Yeah.
to remove
Well,
the game
because
being
it's,
too easy.
it yeets off and just does its own thing.
Yeah,
But yeah, I don't know. I feel like item balance is a really hard question, especially because of something like synergy, right? Like a lot of people who really like characters like Loader, who else is bursty? I don't know.
Artificer.
Will feel like, yeah, we'll feel like Bleed is pretty weak. They're gonna be pretty sad to get something like Shatter Spleen, right? Because they can't really stack it up that well. And then vice versa, you've got a character like Commando, who can't really proc bans
Yeah,
without grenade. And is that okay? Is that not okay? I don't know. I think that that's a good question as well because like, bans are borderline a one run on like Loader. Like the extra damage is nuts.
it's
Or like
crazy.
Bleed is great on someone like Captain because even with one or two, he can just stack it up so reliably. But if you swap them, they're a lot weaker. Is that okay? Is it okay for for item balance to fluctuate heavily between cast members because of just their playstyle?
Usually,
I think that's important.
usually when we ask a question like this, there is no right answer. But right there, yes, very, very much so. Yes, like a million times yes. I should not. When I'm playing a character like Loader, I should not be looking for the exact same items as I am as Commando.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree. I think it adds intuitive or not intuitive, diversity to the game. It makes it less homogenous. But you do run into an issue of like I think bustling fungus. I think a lot of people sleep on it. I think it's not that hard to use as like a healing item on characters that aren't engineer, but a lot of people feel like it's completely worthless on everything that isn't stationary turrets because they can use it all the time. And like, is that okay? Because now you have a white item an item that most
white
people,
item.
a white item, an item that most people are just going to immediately get rid of, are going to be sad to get, are going to feel like is completely useless garbage, right? And then one character who like loves it, right?
Whiteums, guidums, and rightums.
Yeah. Well, but
And then you have lightums and lunar items.
listen, okay. This is a bully.
Why do I have so many stream people? I need to figure out a way to turn this off. Good God! All right, I'll do that next time. I'm actually.
Yeah. But I feel like because that's the same thing, right? Like bleed is good on some characters, not good on others. At what point does it tip over and become like Focus Crystal? A lot of ranged characters don't care about Focus Crystal because they're never going to reliably activate it, right? A lot of characters that are high rate of fire, like Mercenary or even Commando, right? Even like Acrid, don't care about Crowbar.
Yeah.
Because they're just going to burn its effect. So at what point is an item so specialized that it feels too weak because of that,
I'd say.
And is that okay? Is it okay to have that in the pool still?
I'd say an item being an example of, and I know you touched on this earlier, and you don't agree with me on this point, but I think Bungus is way too specialized. Because yeah, I have
think
used
Bungus might be too specialized.
I have used Bungus on many other characters like Mercenary and Loader. I have actually in my Bungus video I talked about how it very much so works on them because you can easily get out of combat, you can get out of balance and just heal for a while. And 6 your healing options are limited. So Bungus, like everyone knows the meme of like, oh, the engineer takes all the Bungus, but like that's a problem. That's a game design problem where it is pretty much ignored by every other character besides one. Like that's
I think that's kind of the name of the problem. Like I think other characters can, even just standing still long enough to pulse once, I don't think is unreasonable on most characters. But at that point, is 4.5% healing too low? Is it still feels too specialized?
the issue is
right?
if you buff the healing, then you buff it even more on engineer.
Right. So like you'd have to find some way. I think not to get too far into specifics, but I think people have mentioned something like it lingering after activating would make it a lot more usable.
I think I talked about that.
Kind of thing is good to consider.
I think I talked about that in the Among Us video. Which, by the way, I just want to go off on a small tangent here. I feel like the videos as a whole have just gotten way more into podcasting, which I really like. I think that's actually pretty good. And like this series is especially adding you, Charlie. This has become a lot more about a discussion, which I really enjoy. We are actually discussing something now instead of like me just yelling at a screen, like the first few videos were. But it's like
I think there's a lot to consider.
There is so much to consider because if you buff it, like let's say, again, what I said earlier, if you buff something for these players, you buff it for these players too, and then the game becomes because the game is fun for me when I'm around a 50% win rate, 50 or 60. That's when the game is fun to me. There were some characters back when I used to play this game every day for like hours and hours, try to get character taking win streaks. I had Artificer, Captain, Loader, and Acrid at a 90%. Like around, I think it was like 85 on some of them. I can't remember the specifics. I should have written it down somewhere, but it was like I would win.
Very high.
Like and it wasn't fun at that point because I was just kind of going through the motions because it's like and Captain's not even that strong. Like look at the DPS right here. He's like smack in the middle. So like the fact that I'm winning 90% of my runs isn't a good thing. And the fact that I'm
Yeah.
and like I was getting close with I think with Mercenary was my next one. Where I was like close to I think he was like number 5 in my win rate. It's like that's no longer fun. That's why I stopped playing the game because I was winning too often. Which then you might be
Yeah.
saying, well, go play Eclipse, but like I don't like how it just arbitrarily makes the game harder.
I think a real a good point for this is the Bazaar and red items in the void field in general. Like we did the poll a while back where we asked when people normally do void fields for 6mm,
Hmm.
and a huge number, like majority of people are stage 1 or 2. Because when you're a lot better at the game, when you've got like that higher understanding, that higher skill level, you can deal with the RNG of what gets thrown at you a lot more consistently. Even something like Tesla coil in the void field isn't an auto loss. It's basically an auto loss if you have lots of small bodies like
Yeah.
wisps. But if you've got a lot of big targets, or if you've got enough damage, or if you've got a lot of priorities, like
Or a lot
you
of
can
healing.
you can kill enemies before they become real threats because it takes 10 seconds to kick on.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that that is a huge change because something like red item power level, right? If you are not able to do void fields consistently, if you're not able to tackle um, the worship unit consistently, which now that he's a little weaker, I feel like
I
probably everyone can.
that made me
But
so
if you
upset, by
don't
the
do
way.
that,
What-
or if you don't know, right? What if you're a completely casual player and you've just never found the hidden chest on Abyssal Depths, right? Red items are now very elusive to you, right? Because you either find a newt and spend a lunar coin, which you may or may not have a lot of if you're not beating the game consistently, right? And then you go there and you can print your items in the cauldron, or you have to overcome one of these challenges that for you as a player are very hard to get a red item. So when you get a red item, being make or break is huge. Getting a Tesla coil and it making the rest of the game so much easier feels correct because it was so hard, it was so rare for you to get, right? Whereas when you're a high octane gamer, you get to stage 1 and you immediately hit the newt, you immediately go into the void fields and you blitz it out and you get all that free stuff and you get a red item and then you get to stage 4 and you get your free red item and then maybe you scrap your stuff that doesn't synergize well because you have a lot of understanding, right? You scrap your lepton daisies and things that don't work with you, and you go to the bazaar and you print it up into a clover, and so these items are a lot stronger. And because like where is the balance point? like right, like so when you're a player who's going to get 2 red items per run on average and then die, versus a player who's going to be 90% win rate, getting 5 or 6 red items easily in 6mm. Like,
well, not 5 or 6. Like that's a little bit too much there. But like
well, you get like 4, right? At least
about 3 or
5.
4, I'd say per run.
Because you get, well, yeah, that's true, I guess. Because you get
That's-
at least like 3.
You're hitting on certain characters, and this is a big thing. Mobility, like innate mobility, is so strong. This is why
Yeah.
I take Island Search and Artifice. This is the biggest reason because the Bazaar is so powerful. Like you can hit every single guaranteed altar with Island Search Artificer, Mercenary, Loader, or even like regular Blink Huntress. I think can make it to the Rally Point Delta one with like a Hopu Feather. Acrid can definitely make it. To every
Look at
single
the
one.
look at the artificer number.
What? Why'd you make it go down? That's so mean.
Because I put on Ion Surge.
You weenie! How dare you! You're so mean to me. I'm so mad.
800% on an 8-second cooldown, 100% per second.
All right, you weenie. Okay. All right. Fine. Let me just
No.
enter the bazaar every single stage. We'll see who does more damage.
No, it's definitely. I think it's preference, but I think that's a hot topic.
I can't believe you did that. I'm so mad. But yeah, so
Yeah, I know.
like the bazaar is
I
so
think
powerful.
That's part of your like, who do you balance for question, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And if you add innate mobility to engineer to multi, like a better innate mobility for multi, like vertical, then yeah, their win rates will go up because the bazaar is so powerful.
Yeah. Well, and yeah, because this chart that I've made is just theory on damage on DPS, right? So there's something to be said for the fact that engineer has bad mobility. Captain is not going to be hitting a lot of bazaars. Loader has a lot of mobility, which has multiple implications, right? Because it not only means she can hit bazaars, she can clear stages faster,
Hmm.
right? Like a lot of these characters are going to be looking at longer clear times on stages because it takes them longer to walk between chests, right? Engineer, even with optimal play, has to walk through the stage. Loader is
Yeah.
zipping about, and she can full loot it much faster,
Task
especially on big stages like Sky Meadows.
task level gameplay for Loader and NG is a world of difference.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you get tool assisted speedrun levels of Loader, like that's insane. Like that.
So yeah, because you've also got aspects like this is where I think Loader pushes over the edge. Is that even if her damage was half as much, she's got that extreme mobility, and she's got a lot of innate survivability built in,
Loader has
right?
the
Like
best of everything. Loader has the best of
she's
everything
got
by
higher
far.
than average health. She has 20 armor. She has higher than average regeneration and gains the barrier on her punch while being mobile enough to disengage freely. Um, and yeah, I don't know. How do you compare that to someone like Huntress, right? Who's got lower than average health, no armor, not as much damage, which means more time in the line of fire in exchange for a lot of mobility from her blink.
I think a big issue with Loader's balance is her concept. The concept of a really fast tank that hits really hard is just busted in the concept of Risk of Rain 2. It's like
It's a lot of stats. Yeah.
yeah, it's like paladins and clerics in D&D. It's like their concept is just really busted. It's like you have a tank who can heal and do a lot of damage.
So like,
That's that seems to
how
be
do you
like all three of the things that we want, right? Like,
how do you
like as a
yeah,
D&D
how do you
team, like,
balance this?
like that's kind of
What do you do?
kind of everything, right? we have
And
we have
like,
a DPS, a tank, and a healer all rolled into one, huh?
because well, and you know why they did it, right? They made Loader mobile because she's hit and run. If she's not mobile, then hitting the punch is a lot harder. They
Mhm.
made Loader survivable because otherwise you punch through a blazing enemy and just burn to death.
Yeah. So how do you nerf Loader without making
How?
her
Yeah,
super not fun to play for these people?
yeah, exactly. That is the question. How do you make it so that that skill cap is relevant for the high because the higher level players have the problem that they don't really feel like they need to worry because they're so survivable that they just do whatever they want, right?
Yeah.
Um, but if you take that away and you make Loader more technical, right? You give her more vulnerabilities so that the higher skill cap players have to play around it more. You make her fall resistance not 100% so that you can't just punch willy-nilly because you might take fall damage, right? The
Yeah.
backup mags get better because you have more hooks to pull in, punch, and then pull to safety, right? But that makes it a lot harder on those other players. I think Rex is another good one, right? A lot of people, I think Rex is incredibly powerful. Rex is like crazy, but because of all the self damage, you've never got OSP up, right? You're always putting yourself at like a lower health effectively, so you're at that risk of if you get hit at the wrong time, you just get beamed, and that happens to a lot of newer players, I think, and they feel like, oh well, Rex sucks,
Yeah,
right?
there's also an issue with there's not many items in this game that give you more max health. There's like infusion, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah, Neural,
Yeah.
Tonic, Pearl. I think that's all of them.
Yep. And pearls are kind of hard to get because you're not picking up lunars unless you're actually using them.
Right.
Uh,
And cleansing pools are pretty rare. Yeah.
Yeah, if cleansing pools were more common, like if you got like if they added a guaranteed cleansing pool to every stage, I could see pearls being way more relevant. Honestly,
I guess.
that'd be really cool having a guaranteed cleansing pool on every stage because then you'd pick up a lunar. Um, oh, that actually be kind of sick. Because you'd pick up a lunar in like the bazaar, you like grab all of the lunars, and then you'd have to deal with all of their inverse effects until you got to that cleansing pool.
True.
That'd be kind of sick.
I
If there's a
guess.
mod for that, I might have to look into that. It'd be fun to try
I,
mess around with.
I feel like you were in a spot where you were pretty satisfied with the conversation. You were pretty happy, and then I was like, wait, what about all these questions? And I didn't really offer any answers. I feel like I've just posed a lot of the stuff that sits in my mind when thinking. I've had people all the time be like, "What do you think if we changed this? If we did this? If we rebuilt?" You know, and it's hard. I feel like if you asked me right now, what would I do to make Huntress feel stronger to me?
Oh yeah, what would you do if you make to make Huntress feel
That's
stronger?
that's a hard question. You know, I mean, what do you do? Is it just do you just put more damage on her M1 so that her consistent output feels good? Would that be enough? Would that be better? Should she just have higher health? Does that take away from her identity? I don't know. These are difficult questions. How do you make Loader weaker?
I feel like we could do.
I feel like Acrid is one of the strongest characters. I think Acrid
Oh yeah,
is easy.
Acrid's crazy. There's a reason why
a
he's
lot of
like.
people would put him lower.
There's a reason why he was like around 90% win rate. He is crazy.
Yeah.
Because he has so much. He has tons of innate mobility. He has an innate win con in poison. Like even if you don't want to run melee Acrid, you can just poison Mithrix and run. Like I feel like the best Acrid, no matter what, is poison because you can just poison and then chill, and Mithrix will die. It's not a very
Mithrix phase 4 pretty trivial too because you can kind of take whatever you want and just hide.
And because you have such insane mobility, you can just jump on top of a pillar and then he can't touch you.
Yeah.
Like Acrid.
Yeah, and yeah.
Acrid.
I don't know.
Acrid is crazy.
And that's a hard question because like a lot of people you see comments from new players that are like, I don't know what I'm doing wrong.
Yeah.
Because they can't get out of stage 1 or 2 with Acrid. I don't, maybe they're relying on poison too much. Maybe they're not engaging threats properly. Maybe they're not pathing. I don't know, but they feel like Acrid is just way too weak. And what do you do about that? Because a lot of the same players will feel like Huntress is a lot stronger because her gameplay loop is very, 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 very straightforward. How do you fix that, right? Because a lot of people already feel like Huntress is OP. If you go in like game discussion 1, you'll see that a lot.
You know what? I'm actually gonna do this right now. Even let's do this.
And how do you?
Let's do this right now.
How do you?
I'm not sure people are active right now, but let's go ask right now. How good do you think Huntress is?
Oh, do you think our influence has spread enough that people know the DPS now?
I've been recognized in this Discord a few times, so like, I don't know.
That's true. That's true.
I don't know. We'll check on that. We'll check on that later.
Wait.
Somebody said power saw. 1 second. I gotta go back. Uses power saw for the first time. It's cool. It's not much damage. I wonder if it'll get better. Gets ATG and fires 8 missiles at once. This is why you don't give it a 2 times proc coefficient.
Yeah. 5 ukes per second on average.
God.
50%.
But yeah, we'll come back to that later. I feel like this video is not going to end anytime soon because we just have so much to talk about. And honestly, I'm completely fine with the really. Like, I know what YouTube's analytics will be like. Oh, your viewers didn't stick around for the entire video. I don't care. I want to talk about this stuff because I think it's really cool.
Yeah, we'll timestamp it or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I'll add like sections. I think that's the thing you could do.
Yeah,
with YouTube
but I guess
videos
that
now,
would be
cool.
my question is like if you bring Huntress up, if you make Huntress stronger, how many people are now going to feel like she's insane and like too strong, too easy, right? I think that's the reason that her M1 deals less damage than Commando because there's no fall off and you don't have to aim. So should it deal more damage than Commando? Probably not, right? But like,
it needs it.
I don't know. Where do you draw? Like when you get max crit on Flurry and it's only very slightly better damage wise than Commando's M1 would be with worse procs. Like,
freaking Haifu with the striker pog you have.
Oh, we got a bad already too.
Oh, look at that.
Our influence has grown.
All right.
We've spread too far.
Oh, that's funny. All right. Well, I need to redo striker pog. That'd be fun. Get like an actual. I need to buy like an actual green screen. That'd be sick. But yeah, like we need to do like. I feel like if we wanted to do this, we wanted to stop and not have a 3-hour long balance video. We could just split. We could stop now for like in a little bit and just make different videos and like what we would do to Huntress, what we would do to Commando, what would we do to Engineer, to get them to be around the same power level as Loader. And even like with the star character thing that I mentioned earlier, like I really like that idea because it benefits it fixes the problem for both groups.
Yeah. I think another like big thing is just getting people talking about the right stuff, you know? Giving the answers isn't always like I don't have answers for a lot of these because there's just so many different pieces. But we can brainstorm, right? We can play with ideas because the most important part is getting the problems out there so that the people with tools or good ideas can start coming up with thoughts.
Yeah,
What if we do this? And then the one in a million, someone's gonna have a stroke of genius in the middle of the night. They're gonna wake up in a cold sweat. And they're gonna get in feedback discussion, and they're gonna type out their magnum opus. You know?
One of my favorite
But they
comments
can't do
ever.
that if they don't know the questions, right? If they don't have the right problems.
Yeah, exactly. One of my favorite comments on one of my videos. I can't remember if it was on Reddit or YouTube, but somebody named Daddy Yes Legs. He was like one of my first commenters on Reddit or YouTube. He used to write me, or he or she used to write me like a page-long essays on different items whenever I upload it. Hopefully they're still okay, or they come back at some point because they haven't said anything for a while. But one of their ideas for Chrono Bubble I thought was perfect, and it increases the duration of status effects as well as the slow or like debuffs. So it would have like super good synergy with Deathmark like it already does. It would be really good with Bleed. Like it'd be so cool to see that. To see Chrono Bubble be used in this really new and unique way.
Yeah, and I think getting those kind of questions out is hard. Like, if people feel like Huntress is strong, you know, they're not going to be asking for something to change.
Yeah, like, I would not be
And
surprised.
I don't know what it necessarily is, but I think Huntress could use a little love.
I would.
I think Commando could use a little love.
I would not be surprised if Huntress is unchanged in the next update, completely unchanged.
Yeah.
Like she might get a new ability, but I would not be surprised. Even though she has the lowest DPS by a good amount, I would not be surprised if she was just completely unchanged.
Yeah. Well, and yeah. I think that's going to be the key is moving discussion away from places like crowdfunder needs to be buffed. Moving discussion away from places like multi-saw needs to be buffed, you know?
Like there's so much misinformation out there, and it's nobody's fault. It's nobody's fault that there's so much misinformation out there, because people aren't doing this testing. We, as far as I know, the only group who is doing this amount of work on Risk of Rain 2 is the Lab Discord. Like that,
Yeah.
as far as I know, that is the only group that is doing this.
Oh man, we've made so many updates to the wiki.
Yeah, we have. It's ridiculous.
Just trying to keep, I mean, even stuff like engineers turrets, right? Because a lot of times the game descriptions don't really help. A lot of people thought that stationary turrets just had straight up higher DPS.
We have an entire channel dedicated to improving the wiki. We haven't done much in a while because we fixed a lot of things like that.
Yeah,
And
it's
I say,
been slower.
and I say, and I say we, but I have not changed a single thing on the wiki. It has been all you guys. You guys are you guys in the Love Discord
Hey,
are insane.
I don't actually edit the wiki. That sounds too hard. Okay, let Groove do it.
It is all Groove, Big Bill K, and Wither, and I think Europe. I forget exactly all who's doing it, but that's them. They're just insane. Just like the wiki. The wiki had so much misinformation on it, and now it is like it's a wiki that you can go to, and you don't have to be worried. Like, oh, is this information outdated? Oh, is this like the wrong thing? Like, it's from the code. Like,
Yeah, more often than not, we'll have corrections on things like how much damage does Arrow Rain actually do? How much damage does Flamethrower? The description for Flamethrower is way off.
yeah, a lot of descriptions, and we need to yell at Gore, yell at Hopu at some point, and get them to fix these descriptions because there's so many that are just completely off.
Yeah, we've actually brought a couple to Gore's attention, so hopefully we'll see a few. In something like Rising Thunder for Mercenary deals 100% more damage than it's listed to do.
Oh, really?
Flamethrower is listed at 1700, and in reality it deals about 2090. And then there's
Wow, I did not know it was that big of a difference. I thought it was just like a little bit.
Hold on, what I need to find what the Prion accumulator is.
Oh yeah, 'cause
Prion
it's
was
way
off.
more. It's way more than it actually is.
It's like 4,000 up to like 8,000. Yeah, The explosion deals 8,000, not 4,000, and the tendrils deal 3 times 400
That's
instead of
so
600 per second.
Why is it 400? But
So
my
it's
bands.
completely different. You know, I mean that's crazy. A lot of people have based dislike of Prion purely off the fact that the damage is so low. It's 4,000, capacitor deals 3,000, 6 times as often or 7 times as often, right?
And the crazy thing, if Hopu would come up with a patch tomorrow, that's like, yeah, we fixed some descriptions, and people would see that Prion is 8,000, they would have a completely different opinion on it because now,
Yeah.
even though it was the exact same, that's why I think if they buff Crowdfunder in this like really weird and like non-impactful way, like making it charge up slightly faster, and people would actually try out the buff and see how much damage Crowdfunder would do, they wouldn't ask for
They'd be
buffs
surprised.
anymore.
Yeah.
Because people
Well, even stuff like unintuitivity with scaling, right? Crowdfunder. I don't. What does the description even say as far as like how it scales with gold?
I don't know.
Does it even say?
Let's check.
Cost increases over time.
That's not even true. It scales with player level.
Correct.
Like that's not.
So that leads people to assume that it scales similarly to something like Brittle Crown, or similarly to something like Gore's Tome, which scale with the difficulty coefficient the same way that like chests do.
It
right?
doesn't.
But it doesn't. It scales. I forget what it is. It's like 1 every 4 or 5 levels or something.
It's something. It's something like super little like that.
It's ridiculously slow. Like you can get through almost the entirety of the Mithrix fight after just killing the chimeras
Yeah,
without running out of cash because it's just
it's
so
crazy.
cheap.
The crowdfund, like people are like, oh, but it costs you money, but it doesn't cost you much money at all. They just see like cost $1 per bullet, cost increase over time, and like, wow, this thing sucks. They also see like, it's a huge meme in the lab Discord, but 100% is not low. That's better than Commando's M1. Like
Yeah.
that's
Well, and I think the key is like the DPS. 1,500% per second. It's pretty fast.
yeah. So if Crowdfunder is in contention right now for the best equipment in the game, and people want it to have a buff. Saw I think is the best M1 in the game when it comes to damage, and people want to give it a 2.0 proc coefficient.
Saw's on single targets worse than Captain. Barely. It's like 110 DPS for Saw. Captain's shotgun is 115.
And I'll think
But
of
Saw has more procs and it has more like as soon as you get AoE, it skyrockets.
and,
You know,
and Saw is such a huge hitbox that you can hit multiple things at once for even more DPS.
easily. And Saw works while sprinting, which means if you get a Rose Buckler, that's 100% uptime. If you get a Little Disciple, that's 100% uptime.
And it works with Red Whip. Like I think Saw is actually the best M1 in the game by a good amount. It is
probably, yeah.
And if they give it a 2.0 proc coefficient or they buff the damage even a little bit, it's going to be multi is going to be like loader tier.
A
Just 'cause
2.0
of
proc
Saw.
coefficient means that a single Harvester Scythe heals you for 16 health.
Oh,
It means that you fire a ukulele 50% of the time, an ATG missile 20% of the time. Like that's
not okay.
that's a lot. It means that all your debuffs last twice as long. You know, your Shattering Justices, etc. Right? Like,
Your bleed,
yeah, your bleed deals twice as much damage.
and also you only need like 3 or 4 instead of 7 for
Yeah.
full. For
Yeah,
like,
actually, yeah, you need 4. 4 tri-tips to have 6 seconds of bleed,
You
which
could-
gives you ample time to restack it. You know.
you could. I guarantee you, with the 2.0 proc coefficient, you could get by on using 1.
And all of that scales with attack speed too. So it's like, I don't know. I think that would be like a crazy change.
And this is I'm going to end this video because it's an hour and 34
Yeah,
minutes
I
long.
think there's too many rabbit holes that we could keep going down.
Yeah, I would absolutely love to make a 3-hour video, but I don't think it's going to be healthy for me. And
I think maybe what we should do, because I don't know if I have answers to a lot of questions, but maybe it would be interesting to have compartmentalized videos where we just like, I don't want to say build a tier list, but kind of go through the same motions. You know, like I find building tier lists interesting because I like analyzing everything one by one.
now
Or we
you
could
know
do something like just taking an in-depth look at all like the white items.
my blind rage towards tier lists, so like
Yeah, well, no, because I don't know if putting them in a tier is good, but I think just looking at and analyzing and thinking about all the implications and the synergies could be, I don't know, maybe that's good content. I don't know if people would care, but just going through like all the white items and saying like, okay, you know, let's look at AP rounds, you know. and just and thinking about things that way, and we could go through a lot.
Well, that's what I was trying to do with the original discussion videos. You know, going from like item to item and discussing it and going really in depth
That's
with
true.
it. Uh,
That's true.
but the issue is that I would get to items that would have me stumped. Like I had a glowing meteorite video pretty much done, but it wasn't very interesting because I didn't find anything new to do with it. It was just, well, it's as bad as everyone says it is, and I'd be like, I don't
Yeah.
want to make a video on this because it's not interesting. So I'd get kind of stuck.
I
Whereas,
guess maybe that's for like a broad topic. Like if instead of just meteorite, you were talking about like lunar equipment.
in general, yeah, that'd be more interesting there.
Yeah.
Same with the God, that Sundered Grove video destroyed my entire
Yeah.
my entire passion for making videos on this video game. Sundered Grove in general made me not want to play this game very much at all. I hate that map so much with a burning passion. I hate it.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah,
could rant about that for hours.
I feel like that would let us kind of do what we're doing now, but more compartmentalized.
Yeah,
That way it doesn't go for, 37 hours.
but I do also like the podcast format where we just talk about the state of the game for a while.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully people think it's interesting. I feel like there's a lot that I could talk about. I know too much about this game.
Same here. I have had so many people talk about Risk of Rain 2 in passing while I'm like in the Discord VC with them. I'm like, ooh, you want to talk about Risk of Rain 2?
Yeah.
I can talk about Risk of Rain 2 for like 2
Every time
hours.
that I meet a new person, I'm like, have you played Risk of Rain 2? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, okay, well, you may not want to play with me because I think I might know almost everything. I
Hey,
have so much
hey,
niche crap about
you play
this
Risk
game.
of Rain 2?
Get ready for me to give you a breakdown of every single item uncontrollably. I can't stop.
It's funny. Somebody in like a completely unrelated Discord, somebody said something like that they play Risk of Rain 2 and they wish that they wish that Saw was better, and I had to control myself from going off.
Yeah.
I was like in a Discord recently with people I've known for like a few years now, and they like just started playing Risk of Rain 2, and I was so close to just going off on them. It's but yeah, in conclusion, it's really hard to balance for this entire group of people. Like you're going to have players like me and you and the entire live Discord in every video game. Doesn't matter how popular it is. In any video game at all that has at least some players, you're going to have people that obsess over the mechanics. And it's like, this is such a huge amount of people, and this is such a small amount of people. Like, honestly, I should have made these sections way smaller.
Yeah.
Because we're like 1% of the community. And that sucks. Because I wish that percentage was a lot higher. But Hobu, at the end of the day, is going to listen to these people.
Yeah.
Because
it's the largest
yeah.
player base.
And as always, buff, don't nerf. Only nerf when you absolutely have to, because it sucks being handed a toy, and then later on, they take the toy back and break a wheel because the toy was too good.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's never a good feeling. It sucks, but sometimes it's necessary to avoid power creep, which we definitely should talk about power creep before then, because if you
shoot.
yeah, that was kind of a big deal.
If you look at like newer characters, the newer characters are all at the absolute bleeding top of this list.
So let's see.
Except Captain.
Captain's the only
'Cause
one.
Captain gets value
That
in other
wasn't
ways,
in the
right? Like
in the base
microbots.
game. Yeah, everyone that wasn't in the base game, like Loader, Akron, and Rex are right here. They were all
And new mercenary, right?
yeah,
Mercenary got
and new
reworked.
mercenary.
Even Multi.
Multi
is
also
so
got a
high
rework.
because of
Like
his cancels.
Huntress, Commando, and Engineer haven't been touched very much at all since the game came out, and you could definitely see that. And it
I
has
mean, Multi would be a lot lower before Saw was added, before rebar canceling was in the game.
I feel like there's a trend here where, like, the same thing in Gunfire Reborn, which is another roguelike I play a lot, and that game is awesome, by the way, if you haven't picked it up. The new characters in that game that they've added are way better because now all the difficulties are in the game. Like that, now we have Nightmare mode, so they're coming out with characters that are suited for Nightmare mode. Where Cat and Dog, even though Dog is still really strong because his skill is really strong, holding two guns at once in a game all about guns is pretty dang strong. Who would have thought?
Yeah.
You get these characters that all of their abilities are suited for this really high difficulty. So when you go back to characters who were made before the difficulty was even around, like Borderlands 2 has this problem too, where like Krieg was the last DLC character, and that was after OP8 was out. So his entire like all of his abilities were designed for OP8.
Yeah.
So we have that kind of issue where Loader, Ackard, and Rex, their abilities are so much stronger than Commando and Huntresses, because Commando and Huntresses have that issue where they're the starting characters, and also they were the first characters. I guarantee you that when Hopoo started making the game, they probably made Commando and Huntress and Engineer first. Because
Yeah. Especially because they came from the first game.
yeah,
Right? I mean, yeah, and I think what was it? I think it was 1.0 where they made the difficulty scaling all 10% harder. I think that's the reason that characters like Commando and Huntress are getting more complaints than they used to, right? Because the game got too easy because all the new characters were incredibly powerful, right? The game got too easy because Loader can stand still and be unkillable for like the first two stages, regardless of her items, right?
yeah,
And none of the other cast members had that luxury. So they made the game harder to try and counter that, right? Let's increase the scaling so that players get punished for this kind of thing. And now these weaker characters who were already balanced or below the curve are now really struggling, you know?
yeah. You can't
And yeah.
make the game harder to nerf the good characters. You can't do that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like that's such
I
a
think that's kind of my
that's
thought,
such a
too.
band-aid solution. Because
I think that's the only reason that I lean a little bit more towards like nerfs right now is because I feel like the reason nerfs are warranted is because characters have power crept into a position that they shouldn't be in, and now we're making the game harder to compensate. You know?
yeah, it's like the same thing happened in Pokemon. Like if you look at the OU tier back in Gen 4 compared to now in Gen 8, very very few of them have stuck around because they just kept
Yeah.
adding. It's like Borderlands 3 had this issue where they kept nerfing guns and nerfing weapons because the devs said at Gearbox, the devs at Gearbox said, if we add a new grenade and it's not as good or better than the Hex, there's no reason for us to add that grenade. No one's going to use it.
Yeah.
So they were nerfing like the best weapons, and it sucks. It feels bad, and it was a bad decision because then they came out with these really busted busted weapons that people just used because they were better than what we already had. And that's
Yeah.
what power creep is. The longer the game goes on, the longer the game goes on, the more powerful everything is. And it's so hard to avoid that as a game designer.
Yeah. Well, especially because when you release something new, you don't want people to. I think. Do you play League of Legends? That's for a lot of people. That's a curse thing to bring up.
I just started playing it because my friends had gotten into it. I play support Kale, by the way.
I think that's pretty fun. I think a lot of people will reference that. Like they'll mention that like when League adds new characters, they tend to just add broken characters that are insanely powerful and they get always banned. I think Overwatch actually had a similar thing.
Yeah.
Where people felt like every new character added was insane. I think the philosophy there is that you don't want to release a character that feels weaker than everything else. You don't want your new toy to feel less fun than everything else and boring, right? So you release a stronger character, but I think the key to that is that after that, you have to slowly and incrementally like bring them back down. Like, okay, this is too strong. This needs to come down so that it's on in line. And the problem was we never got that. Like,
When
we're
Loader
just getting buffs.
Loader never got nerfed after like when Loader was introduced and she was crazy, that's when she should have been nerfed. Like right now, it's been too long. People have gotten way too
Acrid has
used.
gotten just stronger. Mercenary has just gotten stronger.
It's
You know,
like
Multi was already really, really good. Nailgun and everything already had crazy damage output.
Yeah.
And he just keeps getting buffed. You know, Rex is really strong, and Rex keeps getting buffed.
And the Commando hasn't been
Getting
touched in
buffed.
forever.
Yeah.
And I had a huge smile on my face when we talked about the whole like they add a new toy. I love being. This is why I think I was born in this generation. Is that we are in the prime spot where like the internet is in its prime, not in its prime, but the internet is really powerful, and you can update games now. Like back in like the NES or like SNES era, like even way after that, when you shipped the game, it was done. But now with modern game design, you can ship a game and then add more to it and change things and improve things, and afterwards it becomes a completely different game. Like content
Yeah,
update 0 and now are completely different,
that's true.
and
Yeah, I think Groove and
it's
everyone was
so
recently playing it because it's so different.
it's so exciting to me because these problems weren't a thing before. Like this wasn't an issue that game developers had to hurdle over, but now it is. It's so cool. It's so cool,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I love that. All right, I think that's gonna be the end. That's gonna be the end. We went for an hour and 46 minutes at the
I know.
moment. Oh my
I feel like at
god!
this point we have to just stop, or we'll come up with a new topic and talk.
Oh, of
another
course we
45
will.
minutes.
So shout outs to the lab Discord. Invites in the description. Same with the Striker Hut, which is a hangout server. Uh, it's the lab Discord's great. Shout outs to Wither, Tarluck. Uh, let me go down the list real quick. Shout out to you, of course, Charlie.
Shout out
Groove.
to you.
Oh, thank you. Groove, Tarluck. Insert wing name here. Literary Europe. CBHV. Like all of the active members on the lab Discord. I love seeing something that I made be used so often. It makes me very happy. And it's yeah. I have gotten so many nice comments, and this is why taking this long big break was such a bad idea, but also a good idea because like I feel so refreshed from not having to worry about YouTube content. I get so many nice comments. Let me find some to go through real quick. Uh, I get so many nice comments about the videos that we have made, especially the Blight Poison video. People loved that video.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of
Yeah, my computer was so slow.
references to like that kind of like thought process as well.
Yeah,
You
see,
know, I remember like Blake getting flamed nonstop, and then that kind of happened, and I've seen a lot more people be open to it. You know,
where can I find my your videos? Here we go. Here. I'm just gonna like black that out in editing. I want people to know who I watch. Comments right here. I feel like I have. God, I hate when people ask for it to slow attack speed in Chrono Bobble. But yeah, like I get so many good comments, like Fungling right here. This video makes me happy because I always want to try Blight Accurate. It seemed like more my playstyle than the weird clunky hit and run melee ranged accurate abomination that Accurate usually is. I tried it and it works for its barrel BB, and I especially like how your excitement matches mine. Like it's so. I didn't even see this one right here. I'd love to see her. Oh, yo, it's a Blade long comment. Let's go. I'm gonna have to read that later. But like that's so. It's so nice. It's so good to get comments like these. It makes me feel so happy because people are looking at this thing that I've created and are like, "That's really cool. I should tell them that it's really cool," and it makes me really happy. So thank you for doing that. If you're on this list, but it just I need to do this more often. I need to do it more often. I need to work a lot harder on these. Yeah, I get why people do YouTube now. I completely understand.
yeah, it's kind of neat.
Anything you want to say?
Getting something out there.
Yeah, anything you want to say, Charlie, before we end the video, finally? Before we go down another rabbit hole? Quick.
There's nothing I can say that won't start a rabbit.
No!
Thanks for being open to new things. You know,
Ah, it's so...
to everyone who's watching, even, you know, I think that's the most important part. Is just being open to new things, and being willing to try out whatever you think is the most enjoyable. You know.
Yeah. It's like this game, like... There's so many different ways to play this game. There's so many different ways to play this game. And people are just ignoring items that are really fun. Like, synergies that are really, really fun because they don't know about them. Alright, that's going to be it. Goodbye. Alright, I'm pressing the end record button. Oh,